is a far-off idea for some of us, and for some of us it's near-term reality. Patrick will talk about the options for when to take Social Security. The two questions you need to ask yourself to make a good decision, and he will share his game plan to take Social Security. So here's Patrick. When should you take Social Security?
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. My question is, when should you take Social Security? Some, on one end of the spectrum, some people may have already decided to take Social Security. On the other end of the spectrum, as I look out into the audience, you're thinking, Social Security? I'm still trying to think how to pay off my student loans, right? And then there's the rest of us, and we're all saving for retirement. And we're all starting to think about Social Security. So what I would like to talk about today is some options on when you should take your Social Security. I'll give you two questions you should ask before you take your Social Security, and I'm going to talk about my plan when I'm going to take my Social Security. But before I do that, what is Social Security? When did the Social Security retirement system come about? And it came about during the 1930s, during the Depression. At that time, the elderly had no job prospects, no protection, and over 50% of the elderly were like destitute. The economy was that bad. And the reason why is because we went from an agricultural economy to an industrial economy. And back then in the agriculture, if you work on a farm, everyone lived in a big house and all kinds of generations were in there. But as we became more of an industrial, the elderly were by themselves and they had no money. And our government said, we need to do something. And so by 1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt created the Social Security retirement system. And it was to protect the elderly. And so the whole idea was that you would pay money into it, and when you reach a certain age, which was 65 at the time, then you would start collecting Social Security retirement. Now what's interesting about this is that we started paying into Social Security in 1937. And the first check that a person got, first monthly check, was in January 31st, 1941. And it was to Ida Mae Fuller, a legal secretary from Ludlow, Vermont. And what's interesting is she paid 3 years into Social Security. She put in a whole whopping $24.75. And on January 31st, she received her first check in 1940 for $22.40. Little did our government realize that first person lived to be 100. So she invested $24.75 and she collected over almost $23,000 from our government. Boy, that's a great investment. Maybe we could do that. But what I would like to talk about is what should we do about Social Security? Now, before I talk a little bit more about that, we got to think of age. The average male at this time in the U.S. lives to be 78. The average female lives to be 81. However, if you're 65 years old right now, a male is expected to live to be at least 84. And if you're a female, 87. So you got to keep this in mind. Because the example I would like to show you here is when should you take Social Security? Now the earliest you can take Social Security is at 62. The latest, without gaining any kind of a benefit, is 70. And most of us right now, our full age retirement is 67. Now what they do to come up with your dollar figure is they take the average you've earned over the last 35 years. So the example I'm going to use here is just average over 35 years, $50,000, since it's nice and round. Now if you decide I'm going to take retirement at 62, you would receive, and if you averaged out $50,000, about $1,146 per month for the rest of your life. Okay? Now what's interesting about that is that 2/3 of Americans take their retirement at 62. Now, if us right now were to be 67 years old and we took our full retirement, we would get $1,000 $697 per month for the rest of our lives. Now, if we waited till we're 70, we would receive $2,146 per month for the rest of our lives. So you're going to ask yourself, how much should you take? Well, again, 2/3 of Americans take it when they're 62. The average right now Social Security check is $1,294 per month. Okay? Now, we come to the two questions. When should you take it? You got to ask yourself two questions. One, do you need the money? So if you're 62 years old, you don't have a job, you don't have any savings, should you take the money? I would say so. But if you're 62 years old and you have a lot of money, and you don't need the money, you might want to wait a few years, because every year you wait, you get 8% boost in your retirement savings. Because remember, and the second question is, what's your longevity? If you're in a family where every time someone's 66 years old, all the males in their family 66 years old die of a heart attack, then you probably want to take your Social Security at 62. But if everyone in your family lives to be 95, it might be better, if you can, to wait till you're 70 to take Social Security, because you'll be taking home a whopping $2,146 per month. So you're going to ask yourself those two questions. Do I need the money? And what's my longevity? Okay, because the later you take it, the more money you receive. Because if you were Ida Mae Fuller and you lived to be 100, you'd be collecting $21.46 for the rest of your life. Okay? Now, what's Patrick McGinty going to do? My game plan is to retire at about 60, 62, to use my cash or my Roth until I'm about 65. Then I'm going to utilize my 403B and my state deferred compensation plan until I'm about 70. Then I plan on taking my retirement, my Social Security at 70, because in my family, most of them live to be over 80, 90 years old. So it's going to really benefit me for me to take it at 70. So I started off the question, when should you take retirement? First, it's a personal decision. And I'm making it simple as a single person. If you're married, there's all kinds of different things you can do. But as a single, this example is simplified. But first, it's a personal decision. Second, obviously, the earlier you take it, the less money you receive. The later you take it, the more money you receive. And third, you got to ask those two questions. So ultimately, the decision is yours. Make it a good one. Madam Toastmaster.
Here we have 90 seconds on the clock, please.